Right now, over 10 million people are locked inside a prison cell somewhere on Earth. But what happens to them inside depends entirely on where they are. In one country, inmates get their own apartment, a recording studio, and cook their own meals. In another, prisoners are forced to stand for 16 hours a day, blindfolded every time they leave their cell, and fed nothing but soup for the rest of their lives. Later, we will get to North Korea, where your entire family can be sent to a labor camp because of what you did. But first, let us start with a country you think you know. The United States has more people behind bars than any other major democracy, roughly 1.9 million inmates. But one facility stands above every other prison in the country. A DX Florence in the mountains of Colorado is America's only federal supermax prison. It is known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies, and no one has ever escaped. A DX holds the inmates that the United States government considers too dangerous for any other prison on Earth. El Chapo is here. He escaped from 2 maximum security prisons in Mexico, once through a mile-long tunnel on a motorcycle, so they sent him to ADX because they knew he would not escape a third time. Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev is here. The shoe bomber Richard Reed is here. FBI traitor Robert Hansen is here. The Unabomber Ted Kaczynski served time here before his death. These are the men America decided could never be around another human being again. But what does a day actually look like inside a DX Florence? At 5 in the morning, the lights flicker on automatically. The inmate wakes up inside a cell that measures 7 feet by 12 feet. Everything in this cell is made of poured concrete. The bed is concrete, the desk is concrete, the stool is concrete. There is a single slit for a window, 4 inches wide, angled upward so that all you can see is a thin strip of empty sky. No mountains, no ground, no other human being. At 5:30 in the morning, breakfast arrives through a slot in the steel door. The inmate eats alone. There is no cafeteria. There is no dining hall. Every meal, every day, comes through that slot. From 6 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon, the inmate stays in that cell. There is a small TV with limited channels. There is no internet, no phone calls. Some inmates read, some stare at the wall, some talk to themselves. The cell is soundproofed, so no one can hear them, and they cannot hear anyone else. One former inmate described it as sitting inside your own personalized coffin, watching yourself rot away, day by day, minute by minute. At 5 in the afternoon, if the inmate has earned it, they get 1 hour of recreation. This does not mean a yard. It means a slightly larger concrete cage alone. There is no exercise equipment. Some days, recreation is canceled without explanation. 2 days a week, there is no recreation at all. At 9 in the evening, the lights go out. The inmate has spent approximately 23 hours alone. And then, the next morning, it starts again. The same walls, the same slot, the same strip of sky, for years, sometimes decades. The average inmate at ADX spends over 8 years in solitary confinement. Amnesty International has called this a violation of international law. The United Nations defines keeping someone in isolation for more than 22 hours a day as torture. A DX inmates routinely exceed that threshold. Even one of a DX's own psychologists admitted that the conditions amount to a form of torture. In 2013, A mentally ill inmate took his own life after spending over a decade at ADX with only occasional mental health care. His psychotic symptoms had reportedly been ignored in the days before his death. But there is one story from a DX that shows just how deeply isolation can damage a person. Travis Dusenberry spent 10 years in ADX Florence. After 5 years, he was moved into a step-down program where he was allowed to be around other people for the first time. And what did he do? He started hugging other inmates. He could not stop. He was so desperate for human contact that he wrapped his arms around anyone near him. The guards were stunned. They said most inmates coming out of long-term solitary cannot even stand being in the same room as another person. A DX Florence is designed to isolate the most dangerous people in America from the world. But what happens when an entire country builds a prison system designed not to isolate you, but to break you? Russia has one of the harsh prison systems in the modern world, and one facility sits at the very top, Black Dolphin, located near the Kazakhstan border, in a region so remote that the landscape itself is a prison wall. It is one of the oldest prisons in Russia, operating since at least 1745. It gets its name from a strange detail, a papier-mâché dolphin sculpture that sits outside the entrance, made by an inmate and painted black because that was the only color of paint available. New arrivals never see it. They arrive blindfolded. Black Dolphin holds approximately 700 of Russia's worst criminals, serial killers, terrorists, cannibals, child murderers. Every single inmate is serving a life sentence. On average, each prisoner has been convicted of taking 5 lives. One inmate, Vladimir Nikolaev, is a confessed cannibal who ate the flesh of 2 men. He told a documentary crew that he boiled and fried his victims. Here is what a day looks like inside Black Dolphin. At 6 in the morning, the wake-up call sounds. The inmate makes his bunk immediately. His cell is roughly 50 square feet, smaller than a parking space, and he shares it with one other inmate. Between him and the corridor, there are 3 separate steel doors. From the moment he wakes until lights out, roughly 16 hours, the inmate is forbidden from sitting down or lying on his bunk. He must remain standing. Every 15 minutes, a guard walks by to verify compliance. When the cell door opens, the procedure is always the same. The inmate faces the wall, places his hands behind his back, and states his full name and his crimes out loud. He says, "Yes, officer." His hands are then cuffed through the food slot. A black hood is placed over his head. His arms are raised behind him, above his hips, forcing him to bend at the waist. He walks hunched over like this wherever he goes, escorted by 2 guards and a trained dog. This is the only way any inmate moves through Black Dolphin, bent over, blindfolded, unable to see where they are or where they are going. The lights in the cells never turn off. Not during the day, not at night. The fluorescent bulbs stay on around the clock, supposedly for monitoring, but the effect is constant sleep disruption. Meals are soup. The same soup, 3 to 4 times a day, every day. There is no variation. There is no other food. This is what they will eat for the rest of their lives. For 90 minutes each day, the inmate is allowed to exercise inside a concrete cage, alone. While he is out, guards search his cell for contraband. This is the only time he leaves his 50 square feet. About 160 of Black Dolphin's inmates are currently on psychiatric watch. Staff have reported that one inmate was convinced someone had stolen his legs during the night. Others spontaneously howl or sing for no apparent reason. In Russia, a life-sentenced prisoner can apply for parole after serving 25 years. In practice, nearly every single request is denied. Black dolphin is where they come, and black dolphin is where they stay. A lieutenant guard at the facility once told National Geographic something that reveals how the staff see their charges. He said that to call the inmates people makes his tongue bend backwards just to say it. He said he has never felt any sympathy for them. Russia's Black Dolphin was built to contain the worst humans alive. But what about a prison built to contain people who haven't done anything wrong at all? North Korea operates up to 6 political prison camps known as Kwanliso. These are not prisons in any normal sense of the word. They are vast wilderness compounds hidden in remote mountain valleys, completely sealed off from the outside world. One camp, Kwanliso 16, covers 560 square kilometers. That is 3 times the size of Washington, D.C. Satellite images confirm their existence. The North Korean government denies it. An estimated 80,000 to 200,000 people are inside these camps right now. Many of them have never committed a crime. They are held under what North Korea calls the guilt by association principle. If one member of your family is accused of a political offense, 3 generations of that family, grandparents, parents, and children, can be sent to a camp. What kinds of offenses are we talking about? Attempting to leave the country, contacting family members who defected to South Korea, sitting on a newspaper that has Kim Jong-un's picture on it, watching foreign movies or television, making an international phone call, owning a Bible, or simply being related to someone who did any of these things. You do not need to be guilty. You just need to be related to someone the regime considers guilty. A former detainee named Jong Kyung-gil was held in the camp at Yodok from 2000 to 2003. He later described his daily life to Amnesty International. A day starts at 4 in the morning with what they call the pre-meal shift. It is 3 hours of hard labor before breakfast. Breakfast is 200 grams of watered-down corn gruel. Then more labor. Prisoners work in coal mines, logging operations, and agricultural fields using hand tools. The rooms are about 50 square meters, crammed with 30 to 40 prisoners sleeping side by side on wooden boards with a single blanket each. In most camps, no clothing is provided. Prisoners face North Korean winters, which can drop well below -20 degrees, wearing whatever they had on when they arrived. Food is so scarce that former inmates have described fighting over corn kernels found in animal waste. Getting caught foraging for extra food can mean solitary confinement, beatings, or worse. An estimated 40% of inmates die from malnutrition, but starvation is not the worst part of these camps. A former inmate known only as Kim told Amnesty International that everyone in his camp witnessed public executions. Those who tried to escape were caught, interrogated for 2 to 3 months, and then executed in front of the other prisoners. A firing squad would line up, and a guard would shout the order, "In the name of the people, shoot the enemy of the revolution." A former security official at Camp 16, who later defected, described something even more disturbing. He said that prisoners were sometimes forced to dig their own graves before being killed with hammer blows to their necks. He also described visiting government officials who raped female prisoners, after which The women were killed because the secret could not get out. And perhaps most chilling of all, former guards who have defected from North Korea have revealed that there are standing orders in every camp. If the Kim regime ever falls, if there is ever a revolution or a collapse, the guards are ordered to execute every single political prisoner. All of them. That would mean the immediate killing of approximately 120,000 people. North Korea's camps are hidden from the world. But one country is doing the exact opposite, broadcasting its prison system to the entire planet as a warning. In 2022, El Salvador declared a state of emergency. The country's brutal street gangs, MS-13 and Barrio 18, had terrorized communities for decades. President Nayib Bukele responded with the largest mass incarceration campaign in modern history. He ordered the construction of CCOT, the Terrorism Confinement Center, the biggest single prison facility on Earth. It has 8 sprawling pavilions, each cell designed to hold 65 to 70 prisoners. Total capacity, 40,000 inmates. By 2024, El Salvador, a country of just 6.3 million people, had over 110,000 people behind bars. That gives it the highest incarceration rate on the planet, higher than the United States, higher than China, higher than Russia. But what makes CCOT different from every other prison on this list is that Bukele doesn't hide it. He shows it off. In slickly produced government videos posted to social media, thousands of inmates with shaved heads, wearing nothing but white shorts, are marched in military formation through concrete corridors and made to sit pressed against each other in massive holding areas. His justice minister stated publicly that those held at CCOT would never return to their communities. The prison's dining halls, break rooms, gym, and board games exist for guards only. Inside CCOT, inmates leave their cells for just 30 minutes a day to exercise in a hallway. They are never allowed outdoors. They shower using water from a basin inside their cells. They drink from plastic barrels. Their diet is beans or pasta. Meat is expressly prohibited by the government. There are no family visits, no phone calls, no educational programs, no rehabilitation of any kind. Cells have tiered metal bunks with no sheets, no pillows, and no mattresses. Human rights organizations have documented what happens behind the cameras. Investigations have found systematic beatings and torture, intentional denial of food, water, and medical care. At least 368 people have died in El Salvador's prisons during the crackdown. Former detainees have described a section of CCOT known as the Island, a solitary confinement area where guards and riot police beat inmates as punishment for infractions as minor as speaking too loudly or showering at the wrong time. 3 detainees reported sexual violence by guards. But perhaps the most disturbing detail is this. Bukele himself has acknowledged that approximately 8,000 innocent people were among those rounded up during the crackdown. Human rights groups estimate the real number may be far higher, possibly a third of all detainees. These are people who were swept up in mass arrests, many of whom have never been charged with a crime, sitting inside CCOT with no trial date and no clear path to release. El Salvador built a prison to make criminals disappear. But what happens in a country where the prisoners run the prison? Brazil has the world's 3rd largest prison population, over 800,000 inmates. Its prisons regularly operate at double or triple their intended capacity. Gangs control entire cell blocks. Guards are outnumbered and outgunned. In 2024, Brazil's own Supreme Court declared a state of unconstitutionality in the prison system after documenting 153,000 reports of torture. But to understand how bad it really is, you need to know the story of Carandiru. Carandiru Penitentiary in São Paulo was, at its peak, the largest prison in Latin America. It was designed to hold 3,500 inmates. At its worst, it held over 8,000, with only 1,000 guards. Gangs controlled the cell blocks. Medical staff refused to enter. Malnutrition was widespread. In the 1980s, a severe AIDS epidemic swept through the prison. On October 2, 1992, a fight broke out between inmates in Block 9. The military police were sent in. What happened next became known as the Carandiru Massacre. In approximately 20 minutes, roughly 3,500 bullets were fired inside the prison. 111 inmates were killed. Autopsies later showed that each prisoner had been hit by an average of 4 bullets, with some hit as many as 16 times. Many were found with their hands raised in front of their faces or behind their heads, defensive positions. No police officers were injured. The commanding officer, Colonel Uberaten Guimarães, was sentenced to 632 years in prison. He was allowed to remain free while he appealed. And then he did something that tells you everything about how Brazil's system works. He ran for political office. His campaign number was 14,111, a direct reference to the 111 inmates who died. He won with over 50,000 votes. His conviction was later voided by a court that accepted his argument that he was only following orders. To this day, no one has served a single day in prison for the massacre. But Brazil is far from the only country where prison conditions are extreme. In Thailand, Bang Kwang Central Prison, nicknamed the Bangkok Hilton, is where foreign prisoners convicted of drug smuggling are sent. For the first few months, inmates are shackled in leg irons. The cells are sweltering. Medical care is nearly non-existent. Foreign inmates often face language barriers that leave them completely isolated, unable to communicate with guards or other prisoners. Their primary meal is a single serving of rice per day. Somalia is home to prisons that are overcrowded, so much so that inmates sleep in shifts. Disease spreads unchecked, and guards are outnumbered or sometimes absent entirely. Somalia remains one of the few countries where public executions are still carried out. And in Equatorial Guinea, a facility called Black Beach Prison is notorious for holding political prisoners without charge or trial. International organizations have documented systematic torture, beatings, sleep deprivation, deliberate starvation. Inmates are held in near total darkness. Their families often have no idea where they are. Every prison we've looked at so far has one thing in common. They treat prisoners worse to punish them harder. But one country asked a completely different question. What if making prison less awful actually made everyone safer? In Norway, there is a maximum security prison called Halden. It holds murderers, rapists, and drug dealers, but it looks nothing like any prison we've just seen. Each inmate at Halden gets their own private cell. Inside that cell is a flat-screen TV, an ensuite shower, and a mini fridge. The furniture was designed by art students. The hallways have large photographs of nature on the walls. The prison has a professional recording studio where inmates make music. There is a climbing wall, a restaurant run by prisoners, a grocery store where inmates shop for their own food and cook their own meals. Guards at Halden do not carry weapons. They eat meals alongside the inmates. They are trained not as enforcers, but as mentors. Their official title is officer, not guard. They go through 2 years of training that includes courses in ethics, communication, and social work. Inmates can receive visitors twice a week for 2 hours at a time. Fathers in prison can reserve a separate cabin within the facility with a bedroom, a kitchen, a living room, and an outdoor play area, and stay with their families for up to 48 hours. Inmates go to work each morning, participate in recreation in the afternoon, and are not locked back in their cells until 8:30 at night. This probably sounds insane after everything else in this video. But here is the part that changes the entire conversation. Norway's recidivism rate, the percentage of released prisoners who end up back in prison, is approximately 20%. In the United States, that number is between 50 and 60%. In the United Kingdom, it's roughly the same. And Norway's system did not always look like this. In the 1980s, before the reforms, Norway's prisons looked a lot like American prisons. They were harsh. They were punitive. Recidivism was as high as 80%, worse than America's rate today. Crime was twice as common as it is now. In 1989, a prison guard was killed by an inmate. 2 years later, it happened again. The system was failing. So, in the 1990s, Norway made a radical decision. They completely overhauled their entire prison system. The new philosophy was built on one idea. The punishment is the loss of liberty. Nothing more should be taken from you. Everything else, your dignity, your health, your ability to learn, to work, to maintain relationships, stays intact. Because every single one of these prisoners will eventually be released. And when they are, they will be your neighbor. Norway spends roughly $93,000 per prisoner per year, about 3 times what the United States spends. Critics call Halden a holiday camp. They say it coddles criminals. The country's own politicians have argued that the conditions are better than many nursing homes. And it's true. Mass murderer Anders Breivik, who killed 77 people, received a maximum sentence of 21 years, though it can be extended indefinitely if he remains a threat. He even wrote a letter of complaint about his conditions being inhumane because his cell was too cold and he had to rush his morning shave. But the numbers don't lie. Norway went from an 80% recidivism rate to 20%. Crime dropped by half. And a corrections officer from California who visited Halden said something that stuck with him. He said that for the first time in his career, he felt relaxed inside a prison wall. He had never seen guards smiling at work before. Norway's system is controversial, but so is a concrete coffin in Colorado. Over 10 million people wake up inside a prison cell every day. Some of them are in concrete boxes they will never leave. Some are in labor camps where they dig their own graves. Some are in mega prisons where meat is banned and visitors are forbidden. And some are in rooms with flat-screen TVs and recording studios, learning to cook and make music. The difference isn't just about who is inside. It's about what each country believes prison is for. Which of these prisons shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments. If you want to see how prisoners survive inside the world's most dangerous prisons, check out this video next.